Like we're here in Leinster House, which is the seat of government, and a lot of people are saying that the Irish state is not doing what it needs to do by way of climate change and really dealing with that issue. I suppose how did the public get behind politicians like yourself and the Green Party and others and other players in Irish society to put pressure on the state to do the right thing?
Well, I suppose we're in the Parliament buildings here in Leinster House, and in recent times we've seen a lot of grassroots movement once again kind of taking hold in Ireland, and that to me is really to be welcomed, because we need that kind of support.
Okay.
So as a senator here in the Parliament, we receive emails and letters and phone calls from the public on a regular basis, informing us of different issues that they have concern about. And the more we have that engagement of what's happening in Irish society, and the more mobilisation of that, the better for someone like myself.
So it gives you a bit more support, if you like.
It gives you support because, I, through years of environmental campaigning, you constantly need to kind of be sure that your message is the message that society wants.
So that you're kind of, because
we're public representatives.
Yeah.
That's our function.
So your job is to represent the concerns of
the public.
And of course you've also got a background in campaigning yourself, going back to the...
And if they match,
Yeah.
so if I have an absolute conviction in a certain area that as here in Ireland, as a society, we need to move in a particular direction in terms of social and economic sustainability, then whatever support I get from NGOs, so non-governmental organisations, environmental NGOs, from civil society groups, from members of the public, when I go up into the Shannon chamber, so into the upper house here in the Parliament, to make a presentation to a minister or to the members, you feel so much stronger if you know you have the support.
And in saying that, like I'm referring to two recent campaigns, the recent campaign for repealing the Eighth Amendment.
Yes.
And a few years back there was also the marriage equality, and I think both of those we know the outcome of both of those, but I suppose more importantly was the social engagement. The Together for Yes seemed to be a very broad-based very broad-based movement, and I suppose and I've heard in recent days and recent weeks that we need to have that sort of approach for climate change or environmental matters generally. So how do we take that lesson of those two campaigns and engage with them?
Well, what we have now is we have a huge body of people who are interested in engaging in politics, and be it on health, women's health issues, or be it on climate change. I think that we have seen over the last 2 decades now a mobilisation in Irish society, and as you say correctly, a lot of younger people, so students in universities. So we have a highly educated group of young people coming up now through the universities and the colleges, and they want to engage. And they've seen that by engaging, that they've seen the outcomes, referenda, or that they're having some impact. And I personally would like to see more engagement around the whole issue of climate change in Ireland, because as you say, there's an awareness that there's this concept of climate change and that it's a global concept.
It seems distant and vague in some respect.
And that's why we need to bring it onto our island and into our island, because we are seeing over the last winter extreme weather events.
Yeah.
So we saw the the tail end of a hurricane, Ophelia.
Ophelia,
We saw the storm Emma. We saw snow, like drifts. And it's not that we haven't over time seen some extreme weather events.
But it's when they're all coming
it's
to
the frequency.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing that, we know that there is the sea level, the temperature is rising. And even though it isn't this huge rise, like of multiples of degrees, it's only fractions, but it's significant to, nevertheless, to show us that
there's
something happening. And that's the cause and effect, So again, what we are recognising is that humanity has a capacity to actually cause huge destruction to other species in the world, and in fact in the whole atmospheric, so biotic and abiotic factors, that we can have if we don't manage the way we live in an appropriate way, that we can cause huge devastating effects.
How hopeful or optimistic would you be that? Because I mean, a lot of the science tells us we're coming, that the window of opportunity to actually do something about it is closing rapidly, and in some cases it should have happened many years ago. But we are where we are. How optimistic would you be that this major social and economic change needs to happen? How optimistic would you be that it's going to happen in time or sooner rather than later?
Well, I suppose I am not very optimistic, to be honest. When I look at the situation here in the Irish government in terms of policy and in terms of taking action, I have to say that there's a lot of double speak going on, or window dressing, a lot of spin, and I really don't like it. And when we see something like a small example would be, for instance, the Irish government give licensing for drilling for oil and gas. And
they're still doing that.
And they're still doing that, but also they give grants to third level institutes for students to study the exploration, exploitation of fossil fuels, But what we want to see them doing is giving those grants to renewable energies, so that we start to invest in terms of intellect, in the in alternatives, but also we're not seeing real action being taken in Ireland. So we're not really facing up to and recognising the threat.
But even the part, like our international commitments, it seems like we're going to come. In fact, we're going to miss them widely, but we're going to come nowhere near living up to our international obligations as regards climate change.
That's right, because also if you look at, the different sectors, so we there's huge investment in the beef sector, in the dairy,
massive
beef
expansion,
beef and dairy, in that area, and we know that is really contributing to negative impact of climate change. So we seem to be taking decisions here, the government is taking decisions, and the industry, that we need to feed the world beef, and we need to feed the world powdered milk. And meanwhile, so we're going more into this mono culture of beef and dairy, instead of looking at how can we diversify, how can our farmers receive support to actually grow cereal, to grow vegetables, to really sustain, and also even, because I have to say, it's an example I often give is the diversity of the animals, like you have the Kerry cow or the Frisian or whatever, but the Kerry cow was almost extinct, and I know the Murphy brothers who produced the ice cream, the ice cream parlour, that they recognise the quality of the milk, so it's a different species of cow they're using, so that there's more diversity, and it's more I think it's much more sustainable instead of just having one.
And a lot of time what they will argue with is food security. But food security isn't about providing a premium product, which is beef, to a premium market, albeit in China, or displacing breast milk.
It's a real threat, and it's becoming more apparent. And I suppose my own sense is that certainly here in Ireland is that we're not playing our part, either locally, nationally, or globally. So we're really falling behind. And if we don't start to take some mitigating measures, if we don't buck up essentially, and that we are internationally we're seen as weak, and we're seen as not taking leadership. And I know, I mean, our Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, at the moment, you know, he wants to be seen as a leader.
Yeah. Are we, as a state, closer to the Trump camp in with regards to environment? And, you know, because there's I'm not a fan of Donald Trump by any means, but his stated position is he thinks that climate change is a hoax. Our government's stated position is that they believe in climate change, but yet they're refusing to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So in a sense, are we closer to Trump than is comfortable to
I suppose
our policies politically?
Yeah, well, the Taoiseach, the leader, Leo Varadkar, did say in his opening address when he was elected that that climate change would be one of his top items on the agenda, and I think he does have a commitment, but we need to see that kind of filtering down now into the department where the Department of Communications and Climate Change, Dennis Naughton, where he actually takes active steps to do something positively
rather than
in
just,
Ireland, rather than just talk about it.
We have a history in this state of good intentions.
Yeah.
But good intentions are useless if they're not followed by the appropriate actions.
Exactly, and we have some big steps to take in Ireland with regard to climate change, and the sooner we get on and do it, the better. And I can tell you the Green Party here in Ireland and the parliamentary representatives we have here in the Parliament it is absolutely central to every single thing we do every day. We will be pushing the whole agenda around climate change to make sure that we get on board and we start moving as a country, because it's embarrassing for me as an environmental campaigner of the last 30 years or so.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing to go internationally to meet old colleagues of mine and to look at the situation in Ireland where we're doing very
we're not, because your own background was back in the 80s. You were linked with you were on the Rainbow Warrior, and that was and the campaign at that stage was nuclear testing in the South Pacific.
Yes,
the French.
that's right. So I was crew member on the as they call the ill-fated Rainbow Warrior in 1985, when the French government bombed the ship, and there was the loss of life of one of the crew members, which was really shocking, and it just showed that because we were, it was people power essentially, and it just showed what governments would do to try to stop activists going out to highlight their actions, and in this case it was underground nuclear testing, which was having a very negative impact in the area of Polynesia. But after that, 1986 and again 1989, I was on board Greenpeace ships when we sailed to Antarctica, and that's when we heard about in 1986 the ozone hole. So there's the hole in the ozone layer, and also we started to hear about the glaciers melting. And what I saw, and what the international community saw within a few years of that ozone layer, the evidence and the information to show that there was a hole, immediately the governments started
Yeah.
to work, and they to stop the use of the
So
spray
there
cans,
was action.
carbons, and there was direct action.
The Montreal Protocol.
Precisely,
Yeah.
it was the Montreal Protocol. All governments got involved, and now we know that the ozone layer, it's literally knitting together.
Yeah, it's repairing.
So that's where I take optimism,
okay. So
because that's where I see that where a group of activists in the
highlighting an issue.
Yeah, so be it nuclear testing in French Polynesia, there's no more nuclear testing there.
So it was a successful campaign.
Success. You see the ozone hole, again, governments around the world and individuals, the consumer gets directly involved and stops buying a product that's causing the impact, and we see real effect. And that's what I want to see now with climate change. I want to see governments, I want to see consumers, societies around the world taking real action to offset the damage that we're currently doing. And I think we can do it, but we have to get on with it.